real man, whatever that bloody is, he looks to get married. And there are so many stats that show that men who are not married or men who are single die early.
Tre Lowe,
the producer and co-writer of the hit sensation Body Groove.
now a huge entrepreneur who has been on shows like GB News and The Apprentice.
There are elements of this sort of patriarchal, toxic masculinity that has men think, tough it up. Now, luckily, or unluckily, depends how you look at it, I've been unwell since the age of 15, so I will go there on my own. But someone like my brother didn't.
I've heard you speak about there was a time in your life where you thought about jumping off the building.
And my brother died. Accept it. Do you understand? Age 15, I've gone into hospital for appendectomy, and they've given me an overdose of a drug called Stemetil. I call it paralysis, but really it's more like rigor mortis, unless you're like stuck in your body. And it was 18 years later, I DJ'd in a nightclub. I woke up, and some people find this controversial when I say this. Suffering is what...
There's going to be people that then hear about you at GB News. What's your response to them?
You know, one of the biggest groups that's failing in society right now? White working class boys. You know, if I don't speak to them, who will? So you're saying that they don't matter? The consequence of not actually talking about things that you don't want to happen in society is these things grow bigger, which is now everyone's scared that reform's going to get to leadership. Well, that's what happens if you try and ignore people.
Right. Where would you consider yourself politically?
So...
Wow. Tre, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
You were just saying you've just recently become a dad.
That's right.
Let's just start there, because I'm not a dad. I would love to be a dad one day, but you're saying this means you're tired, you're not getting as much sleep. How is it going? How are you finding it?
Do you know what? It is truly a labour of love. I mean, I'm always late. I've always been late, right?
Okay.
Black man time. I just think it's in my DNA, right?
Right, but now
like
you've got a
kid
proper
makes me almost like a
excuse.
day late. It's ridiculous. And I've got a good excuse. But yeah, you don't sleep. Your life is not your own. Your time is not your own. But it's the most magical thing you can ever do. And for someone like me who's come from like the music business, TV, and all this other stuff that seems glamorous, none of that matters compared to being a father. I mean, It's the biggest reward. It beats, you know, you could offer me all the money in the world, it will not compare to being a father, especially at my age, at 50. Do you know, a lot of people think, you know, being 50, even as a bloke, is too old and blah, blah, blah. And by the time you go to university, you're going to be like sort of checking out of this existence. And for me, it's the most magical experience. I love it. And it truly has changed my life.
How do you feel about the fact that you are in your 50s, which is generally considered an older dad? Like, how does
Calling me
that
old.
feel? I didn't say that, though. Older, which is considered. No, I'm not considering
No,
that.
I'm proud of
but
it.
yeah,
Go for
like,
it.
how does it come with extra challenges being older, or is there more advantages to being older?
It's funny, right? I did this BBC doc recently, literally answering the same question. This while my wife was pregnant.
You're saying I'm not original in my questions.
This is amazing. But literally, while my wife was pregnant, and I remember speaking to these couples who are older. Some of them were way older than me, and it just felt so. Now, in hindsight, it's like I had no idea about just how transformational it would be. So yeah, things like you're not sleeping and all the rest of it, but it just. Everything's changed, you know, and I think being older, what's good about it is the level of wisdom that you can bring. So if I was in my mid-20s, it'll be not a disaster, because I think I'd always be a good dad, because I've just come from a really good background. My parents have been married for 65 years, maybe even 70 years, something like that.
Beautiful.
You know, but I think being an older dad, it just gives you perspective, it gives you maturity. My son is going to have a massive advantage, you know, when he gets to school against, I believe anyway, kids that are going to have younger dads than me, just because of the amount of wisdom that I can pour into this kid. Like, I can't think of any disadvantages, because even I'm 50, I'm very young at heart. I would actually say I'm healthier now than when I was then. So some people might think, oh, you won't have as much energy and the rest of it. But to be honest, I've said to my wife, you just sleep. Just sleep. And I've been the one doing all the night stuff, changing the nappies, feeding him so that she could get sleep. Because I don't care what any man on planet Earth says, what women go through in pregnancy, it's the least you can do as a bloke is make yourself available, at least for the first 6 months, maybe even 12 months for that kid's life. So I feel so energized. I feel great. Really, genuinely, I feel great. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my listeners, so
Yeah.
we have a lot of female listeners, so I think you've won them all over immediately.
So-
Straight away. And the other thing is, if they're watching on camera, they'll be like, there's no way he's 50.
I know.
Like, looks 21.
Black don't
if
crack.
that-
Black
yeah,
don't crack.
yeah.
But no, seriously, you know, and I was there when my wife gave birth. And like I say, like even the pain she went through, us blokes could not handle 10% of that. So my thing is like the least I can do is make myself so available. And it's funny because I posted on social media a picture of me feeding my child, and it's quite funny. One or two blokes were messaging me almost like it was a non-masculine thing to do. And it's weird. And I speak a lot about modern masculinity. And it's weird how men still live in this old paradigm of what masculinity looks like. Like, you know, women should look after the babies and they should feed the kids and blah, blah. I'm like, no, masculinity is being of service where needed in a relationship. There aren't these defined gender roles of you should do this and we do whatever is of service to each other, you know. So it's kind of made me double down more, especially because I have a son, on one of my favorite topics of what does masculinity mean in this modern world, you know. So you'll see a lot of what I talk about has that thread going through it. What does it mean to be a man in this age? And I think for me, as a father, it means to be someone that's responsible and someone that my son could be really proud of.
I think let's go deeper on that subject, because I agree that it is such an important subject. We hear all the time about young men feeling lost, feeling confused, feeling left out of a lot of conversations in society. And then obviously we know that what comes with that is your Andrew Tates and similar figures like that are preaching this is what masculinity looks like. So what is your overall take in terms of young men, young boys right now, you know, teenagers and so on, that are feeling a bit lost? They're not sure what their role is in society and they're looking to people like Andrew Tate. What would you say to them?
I would say straight away, I mean, when you're a young kid, it might look glamorous to want Bugattis and as many women as you can, you know, hold inside that Bugatti, which is not many, but he will pack them. And to be honest, I find it very immature. And it might seem glamorous, but I think for me as a man, it's find yourself a really strong partner, do you know? Find yourself a really strong woman or whatever your persuasion is, but find yourself a strong partner and build with that person. This image that Andrew Tate promotes of, you know, Bugattis and lots of women, good luck if you ever find yourself with cancer or something, because they won't be there. Find someone that really cares about you. And if you look at like the top billionaires in this world, almost all of them are married. It tells you something. Yeah. Even the ones that divorce, Jeff Bezos, get married again. So this illusion of somehow to be a man, you've got to have all these women, I think that's what a boy would do.
Agreed.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think for a real man, whatever that bloody is in today's world, he looks to get married or really be in a committed relationship because that takes way more work than just having this string of women that you don't really care about, you can discard at any time. That's easy to do. But be in a marriage where there are consequences to it, you know, financial consequences, emotional consequences, consequences around your kid. Be in a marriage and make it work. Be in a marriage as a man where you've got to point the finger at yourself. I'm a big proponent of that, pointing at yourself rather than they're the problem. No, what can I do? And I've had to go for that in my own marriage. I've only been married 2 years, but I've had to keep looking at myself. Trey, who are you being? Who are you being? Like literally moment to moment. Who are you being? And that takes growth. Whereas Andrew Tate way is I'll just get rid of it. Oh, the car's not working, get rid of it. Oh, the woman's not great, doesn't do what I tell her to do, I'll get rid of her. It's childish. So these boys, and I understand why, because it's very flashy, it looks great, and cars and blah, I get it. I get where Andrew Tate is attractive. And some of what he says, I can't disagree with. When he says to, you know, things like, you know, look after yourself, be healthy, no one's coming to save you. It's kind of true as a man, no one's coming to save you. It's not good, it's not nice, but genuinely in society, men are kind of on their own. We don't have a society where you've never heard, you know, men first. It's always women and children first, and rightly so. I'm very traditional, so I've got no problem with that. So no one's coming to save you. So really look at saving yourself. But also make friends with other men who have values congruent with yours, so that someone like Andrew Tate can't prey on you. And like I said, I'm not anti him. I think there's a lot of hysteria around someone like Andrew Tate. I see him more of as a cartoon figure, nothing to be afraid of. But I understand boys are disaffected. They're living in a world really where masculinity itself has been demonized. Like I'm 50, so I grew up in the days of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis, like all these macho images of men, you know, which weren't really harmful because I also had my dad who was married to my mum and great, right?
So you had that balance.
There was balance. There's nothing toxic about that. You know, I grew up with a really profound sense of respect for women. It was drilled into me from a young age. And it's a Nigerian thing anyway, because you're not going to be able to mess with Nigerian women. They're too strong. So you don't get away with trying to be patriarchal to women are too powerful for you. So I had a good balance to me. But at least I had these masculine role models, whereas now, what do these guys have? You either have Andrew Tates or you have much more softer versions of men who equally are just as problematic as far as I'm concerned. Because no woman gets up and says, I want a soft man who's just going to do as I say and and not have any, ambition. He's going to lock himself in his mum's basement and play video games, which a lot of men are doing. They're literally checking themselves out of society. Some of them join these incel movements, red pill movements, essentially hating women because they feel entitled to something that they haven't worked for. That's what it is. So,
where's the line then in terms of guidance? Because on one hand, I hear you say it's about being in a relationship where you serve the other person.
But without letting go of your own self, don't get me wrong, you don't lose yourself. And a lot of men tend to lose themselves in relationships. That's also wrong.
Right.
You've got to find...
Where they just sort of do whatever their partner says.
Things like happy wife, happy life, and blah, blah, blah. But then what about you? Do you know what I mean? It's about finding that kind of balance where you are still assertive about who you are, but you're no longer in this 1920s paradigm of this woman will do it as I say. Because to be honest, and it sounds sad when I say this, most women don't really need men.
Yeah.
I think men need women more.
Okay.
I think a lot of women can do fine without being married, but men, statistically, don't do that well in relationships. I'll use my brother as an example. I lost my brother to COVID in 2020. I tell you this now, had he been married, he'd be alive. Wow. Because men do things like what my brother did. He was unwell. Really unwell. Most people would have gone to the doctors with what he had. He didn't know he had COVID at that time because it was at the very early stages, but he couldn't walk from there to there without wheezing. If he had a partner, my God, she would have dragged him by his ears to A&E. He didn't do it. And there are so many stats that show that men who are not married or men who are single die early. They do, and they tend to do better in marriages and relationships. Women tend to not do as well necessarily. But,
Why is that then? Why is it that men are less likely to go to the doctors in that instance or ask for help?
I think some of it also relates back to, I hate the term toxic masculinity, by the way. I hate these kind of...
Why?
Because I'm not a fan of this kind of world we've got into sort of labeling and victimhood and identity politics. And it's part of that world of men are the problem and blah. I'm just
kind
not
of
a fan
like
of it.
marketing, isn't it? It's trying to make everything black or white,
Yeah,
and we know life
everything
isn't.
has nuance. Yeah. So toxic masculinity suggests that masculinity itself is a problem.
Right.
That's the messaging that a lot of young boys are getting. So they don't know if they're coming or going or if they've been. If that's the messaging they're getting, that is wrong. There are elements of masculinity that can be toxic, but there are elements of masculinity that's kept us safe as a species for a millennia. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So there are elements of this sort of patriarchal toxic masculinity, to use these phrases, that has men think, tough it up. Suck it up, you're okay. Don't go to the doctor, it's fine. I'm fine, I'm okay. Men who don't talk or share, they're not vulnerable. Whereas, someone like me, if I'm not well, I'll let my wife know. I'll tell her I'm not feeling that great. I don't have to be, I'm a man, suck it up, because it could be something serious. Right. She will tell me to go to the doctors or she'll drag me there. Now, luckily, or unluckily, depends how you look at it, I've been unwell since the age of 15, so I will go there on my own. But someone like my brother didn't.
Right.
By the time he got his coat on to get ready to go to the hospital, he didn't make it. He fell down the stairs, and that's where the police found his body. Because he was also quite separated, and they have a problem of men being on their own. They tend to isolate. Men are not as social as women are. So it's very hard to check up on men, especially as you get older. How many friends have you got? Imagine as you're getting older, there are less and less and less, right? It's very normal. By the time you get to my brother's age, there's not that many people around you checking up. So there are so many reasons why men who are not in relationships are very vulnerable. So going back to your original questions, I think young men need positive male role models, people like me and you, right? Because I can get on air and talk about vulnerable stuff and talk about stuff when I've been down and I've been knocked. I don't feel the need, like an Andrew Tate character, to always pretend that I've got it all together, I've got it handled, and I'm not saying he hasn't spoken vulnerably, but it's quite rare.
Yeah.
When I hear him speak, there's a lot of bravado and I'm a man and I've got it together and he's smoking his cigar, as opposed to there was a time I was really scared.
Yeah, I think I've heard him talk about crying, and his response was, "Tears left my face."
There you go.
That is not crying.
But yeah, his dad died, and I know that he was told, and he said he just carried on, but he must have cried. I cried my eyes out when my brother died. And even if he didn't, there's nothing wrong with men expressing their emotion. And I think what young boys have got is either the Andrew Tate or this soft version of men or an angry version of incel men, and they don't have anything in between. Well, I think it's easier now to be a modern man. There are so many examples. There are so many great men and great examples of men who, like me, can be of service to their wife and make sure that she's okay and be a supporter of women, but also be completely grounded of who I am as a man. I'm not a soft bloke in that sense. I'm not a bloke that is, as a man, you can't fully capitulate to just fully your emotions and poor me. Unfortunately, as a man, you've got to go out there and work. You've got to sort yourself out. It just is what it is. And I think biologically we are predisposed to be that way. But just emotionally, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable and asking for help when we need it. So, I mean, that's my take on it.
I've heard you speak about there was a time in your life where you thought about jumping off a building. And just hearing that and hearing you today and also the resilience that you've had, knowing a little bit about your journey. I mean, it was interesting hearing you say about like when women go through childbirth and you're like, the pain we wouldn't understand as men, but I feel like you've been through some really tough times.
Yeah, I mean, nothing like childbirth, don't get me wrong, but definitely painful in another way, because my journey with my health was long. I mean, it was 18 years. I mean, I'll do it in a nutshell. Most people know this story. So age 15, I've gone into hospital for appendicectomy, and they've given me an overdose of a drug called Stemetil, which caused what's called an ocular gyrate crisis. Basically, your eyes roll back in your head and you're trapped in your body. And as a child, I've always been claustrophobic. I could barely have got into lifts, any confined spaces. And I remember being trapped in my body thinking, wow, it doesn't get more confined than this.
How long was that for?
It was probably only for about an hour, but it felt like forever, like an eternity. They then gave me an antidote to it, a drug called benzotropin. It's so funny. People think I'm a doctor when I talk about this stuff. I came out of this, I call it paralysis, but really it's more like rigor mortis almost. You're like stuck in your body, a spasm, a violent spasm where your muscles lock in place, right?
But mentally you're fully aware.
Fully aware, that's the worst part of it. That's the absolute worst, right? Because it's like being sort of disabled or paralyzed from like your neck down or something. I mean, can you imagine, right? So about 30 minutes later, I go back into this. And I'm thinking, they've given me an antidote. Therefore, I've got nowhere to go now. That means I'm going to be like this forever. And what your brain does is it dissociates you from trauma. It's a way to safeguard you just from the sheer terror of it. And this is like my biggest nightmare, being stuck, you know. And even though they gave me the antidote again, my body never came fully out of it again. So when I sort of came to, because it's like I blacked out or something, I had this ringing in my ears that wasn't there before. The world had changed. Everything looked like a dream. And I had a head pressure. So over 18 years, all of this got worse, you know, and I had to carry on with life. You know, I'd gone to every single doctor. Everyone's like, I can't help you. And it was 18 years later, I DJ'd in a nightclub. I woke up deaf the next day. And the way I'd got through all of this was, if it gets bad, I can jump off a building, because at least you have some sort of control in terms of the trauma that you're going through. And this is daily I'm going through it, right? And I remember thinking, I've got such a profound belief in God that there must be a reason for this. Besides, I'm Catholic, so we're not allowed to like top ourselves effectively. So I dug deep, discovered what was wrong with me, and I spent about the next 10 years, this was 2008, 10 years working on myself. So in a way, what was the biggest trauma of my life became the biggest gift. Wow. Because had I not gone through that, you would have found a very different Tre Lowe sat in front of you. I probably would have been slightly more like Andrew Tate, pretending I've got it all together. Look at me, I'm a cool musician, I've sold all these records, blah, blah, blah. Whereas what I learned from trauma is there has to be a meaning to it. And my meaning was to share my story with other people so that they would find power in it. And you're right, I'm extremely resilient. And I'm only resilient because of what I went through. I am resilient to a point of I don't care what life throws at me. I mean it. I don't care what. And I'm very, very grateful too. So even if something ends me fine, I've had a great life. I think once you're resilient, you're grateful, and you have the power of reinvention, which is what you've got, right? The power to, I'm going to reinvent myself and do something different. Age is no barrier. I think those kind of characteristics, you're unstoppable at that point. And I think when we spoke about men, I think that's what men need. You know, a lot of men who are falling behind, and, you know, like men who are going on dates and they're meeting women who are doing way better than them. It's the power to reinvent yourself. You know, how can I be the most valuable version of myself? Oh, I should do things like listen to your podcast. I should do things like self-development. I should go to the gym. I should stop playing video games in my mum's basement. I should go out and be of the world. I should accept the fact that the world has changed. It's that resilience and reinvention, I think, that's at the key to every human being, don't get me wrong, but especially to men nowadays.
Do you think you need to go through something to develop true resilience? No,
but it helps. I mean, show me anyone that hasn't suffered that's powerful. There's not that many, are they? Because everything else then is kind of like, it's not experience. It's like when I said about this, the BBC documentary. When I was speaking to these elderly parents, I had a concept of what it was going to be like to be a father. My God, the reality was a different world. Yeah. I mean, a different world. I've always been someone that hasn't slept much, obviously having tinnitus and all the rest of it. So I thought I knew what sleeplessness was like. But a child's sleeplessness is different, because you're not just awake on your own. You're awake, essentially making a little human, make sure your little human is alive.
Right, yeah.
You know, so there is something about experiencing trauma that gives you a bit of a head start. And it sounds weird because we go through life avoiding trauma. I'm like, no, lean into it. There's like, my brother's death was a catalyst for me being on The Apprentice. That's how much I look at trauma, and I look at it not as poor me pity party, but a chance to grow bigger. Because, I cried my eyes out and I missed him. And I still miss him. If I spoke enough about him now, I'd be crying my eyes out, of course. The trauma's still with me. But my thing was, how can I honor my brother? He's such a beautiful soul. I don't want to spend time mourning his death. He hasn't been dead that long, but he was alive for a long time. And I want to celebrate that part of his existence rather than know he's dead. Because the death part is all about me, poor me. Oh, I can't cope. My brother's dead. But the life bit is, guys, let me tell you about my brother. He was amazing. So there is something about going through trauma that makes you powerful, but you don't have to go through it. You just have to have a willingness to be bigger than how you were yesterday. That's it. You don't need no trauma. But if, like most human beings, as a species, we are designed to want to do better and better as part of survival, that's all you need.
This episode is sponsored by Dr. Tania King-Mohammad. She is the High Ticket Woman, the #1 best-selling author of the High Ticket Method, and one of the most sought-after high ticket experts in the game. Basically, if you are an entrepreneur who is serious about scaling their business, you need to grab a copy of her book right now. Literally, I have read it and it is a game changer. It will blow your flipping mind. Tania is the mentor that the entrepreneurs call once they are finished playing small and are ready to start charging their worth. Working with Tania is all about creating consistent high-ticket sales and doing it in a way where you can create a freedom-level income without the constant hustle and grind like a lot of the other mentors bang on about. If you're listening to this show, you already know you're somebody that's meant for more and is willing to go and work for it. So basically, you need to get into Tania's world. Go and grab a copy of her book right now on Amazon and make sure you give her a cheeky little follow on Instagram. She is at Freedom with Tania and she's consistently giving strategies, tips and advice over there for free so you can start charging your worth and actually starting to believe in it. What about if somebody is listening to this now that is in that position of they're going through something tough, challenging, and they can't see the gifts in it? They can't see that it can be a catalyst to becoming stronger, more capable. What advice would you give them to be able to start to turn it around?
That's a bloody good question, because if you told me that when I was going through the midst of my hell with my health, I'd want to punch you in your face, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be like, who the hell are you talking to? You know
So
how hard life is?
how would you help him get the results sooner?
First thing, compassion. Yeah. You have to have some self-compassion. Start with compassion for yourself. Yeah. And I don't say that flippantly. I have compassion for people going through trauma and they see no way out of it. Like, I love these people. Seriously. Like, have some compassion for yourself. You are stronger than you realize, and it will get better. And that sounds like a cliche, but it will. I promise you, whatever you're going through, you will get better. And because you've gone through it, you're going to become stronger than you realize. So hang in there. Find a tribe or people around you that truly want the best for you. I'll give you an example, right? When I was going through the mist, and my worst symptom wasn't even a tinnitus, it wasn't a derealization, which is a dream sensation, it was the head pressure. That's what made me want to top myself, right? And I remember going on all these forums and things like that, and the reason why I don't like medical type forums is the level of doom and gloom will push you off that cliff even faster. Wow. So it's very important, and I mentor and I teach people this, your physical and your personal and your people environment is very key to your survival. Do not put yourself around doom and gloom. So anyone listening to this who's suffering, whatever it might be, try and find a positive tribe of people around you. And it might mean getting away from your parents or siblings, because sometimes the most doom and gloom people around you might be family members, right? Find people, especially now. When it happened to me, it was 1990. There was no internet in the same way for me to lean on. Whereas now there are so many positive spaces that you can find online. And it could be anything. Maybe it's a medical condition like me. Maybe it's abuse. There is so much support out there. Find people out there that have the same level of compassion for you that you would want for yourself. I mean, like crazy, unconditional compassion for you. Stay around them, because now what that starts to do, without getting too much into the science side of it, is most of us are kind of governed by our limbic system, that part of the brain where the amygdala is the center of it, your fight or flight mechanism. And normally for people suffering, it's that high alert. Right. Everything is danger. Everything's a threat. The minute you put yourself in an environment where there's love, there's kindness, there's understanding, it starts to have your amygdala dial back. And that was ironically the key to my recovery, right? Wow. It then gives you the space to think and to accept. And acceptance is a big one that people really resist. Like, my brother died. Accept it. Do you understand? You're suffering. Accept it's happened. Bad things happen to good people every day. If you can accept it with compassion, that allows some of that amygdala to go, because a lot of people, that fight or flight mechanism is so core to who we are as human beings that it's easy just to stay there. You know, your amygdala, your fight or flight is at the highest level. Dialing it back is by being in that love, that self-acceptance. You're dialing back your fight or flight response. You're feeling that self-love. You're accepting what's going on with you, what's happening to you. You have to accept it no matter how bad it is. That then allows a space for different perspectives to show up. For me, the perspective was, you know what? There must be a reason why I'm going for this. That's why I went from, I'll jump off a cliff, which is not the same as being suicidal. It was a coping mechanism, to almost a weird excitement of, there's a reason why I'm going through this. And then start to look, once you put yourself in an environment of positive people, there are so many people with trauma out there dedicating their life to helping others. And you can get excited by that, because one day that could be you. Even though you're not there yet, one day that could be you.
Right, because you can see it.
You can actually see that these people are giving you trauma. It might be as bad as yours. It could be worse than yours. Not only have they lived through it, but they're now using it to help others. You can get excited by that. And there was this woman, I think it was called Dr. Claire Weeks, who was like an elderly Australian woman. I never got to meet her, but she had all of these recordings talking about mental or nervous energy or something like that. I remember listening to her. Never met this woman in my life, never have done. She's passed away. And in many ways, people like her kept me going, they kept me alive. Wow. And when I think about it, I've never met her, I never got to thank her. The thought that one day I could be that person that does that to other people, then I'm like, my tinnitus is not bad. My head pressure is not that bad. Deregulation is not that bad. Because one day I might help save someone else's life. So what you've done now is you've reframed your suffering from a conversation around suffering to one around empowerment. And that in itself started to cure me. So my head pressure, once I started to learn all this, disappeared in a matter of weeks. I still have tinnitus, very severe tinnitus, which I wouldn't wish on my worst nightmare, on my worst enemy. And I still have derealization. But what's changed is the way I relate to them. Because, and some people find this controversial when I say this, I'm not sure why, but some people do. Suffering is what you make it mean. So it's not the thing itself that causes you to suffer. It's the meaning that you give it that causes you to suffer.
I think I've heard Tony Robbins say, pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice.
Exactly. So my tinnitus now is, you know, objectively 1,000 times worse than it was when it first started. I'd probably say 1,000,000 times. Because when it first started, it was a very faint, high-pitched sound I can hear in a quiet room. Now it's about 1,000 tones that's louder than anyone's voice in this room. If I was on the M25, I'd hear my tinnitus. Do I look like I suffer?
Not in the slightest.
Do I look like I don't sleep, other than the kids?
Yeah.
I will never tell I'm not sleeping because of tinnitus. So for so long, I was suffering because of tinnitus, because of the meaning I gave it, not because of the tinnitus itself. So I hope people get value here in that story. I'm telling you, suffering is a meaning-based thing.
But that must take real work to work on that. And obviously there's an element about changing the meaning. There's also an element of making it about other people's service and not just making it about yourself. But I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to that just right now hear that and they go, I could never get to your level of acceptance and compassion. Because it's the thing of like forgiveness as well. When someone wrongs you, again, it's a similar thing to what you're saying, I think, which is it only harms you by thinking that way. But
it's like when they say, you know, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Yeah, it is that. But, you know, someone listening to me again, then surround yourself with someone like me.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay if you think that way, if you're suffering. It's okay. It's not a problem.
I've even heard you speak about like being a minority doesn't have to be a negative thing as well.
Oh, God. This is a GB News type topics.
Oh, sorry.
No. I love this because it's like what I said about identity politics. And maybe it's my Nigerian upbringing. So obviously I was born in 1975. So I've sort of grown up in the days where it's not as politically correct as it is now. So my dad would say to me, son, you're black. Life is hard because you're black. You're going to have to work 3 times harder. That was probably the best advice he could give me because I worked 3 times harder.
Right.
So I don't find myself in spaces or rooms where I feel inferior because of the colour of my skin. I actually feel even more empowered because you'll bloody well remember me.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the suffering thing. It's like rather than focus on the negatives, sure, I'm not under no illusion that being black or minority or being a woman or being gay, whatever it is a disadvantage often. Depends on what society you're in, right? But you can take the positives of it and just focus on that and just grow that side of it rather than focus on the negative. So there are positives in terms of just be charismatic. Because, you might be the only minority in the room, but you're going to be the most memorable person in the room. So suddenly your perceived deficiency or disadvantage has now become your biggest advantage. I go networking events all the time, and most of the time they are a bit male, pale, and stale, to be honest. But people will bloody well remember me.
Right. I remember speaking to Paul C. Brunson, the relationship expert, and he said that is like actually a good business strategy is get into rooms where you stand out and you are different to everybody else. Use that as an advantage.
Yeah. But you see, again, it comes back to the suffering thing, isn't it? It's a choice. You can choose to see yourself as a minority that suffers and blah, 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 or see yourself, you know what, I've got the biggest advantage ever. The minute you accept that about yourself, now the only you that will show up is that person that's told, wow, I'm actually special and unique. It is a choice. At any point, I can actually choose to go into, but because I'm black, it's going to be harder in business if I go for a bank loan, blah, blah, blah. And there'll be stats to back that up. Again, I'm not going to say that's not the case. Well, I could choose to be the opposite and be like, I'm going to go in there because of the way I am. They're going to give me double what they'll give anyone else. And I have more evidence now for that than for the other, So, everything always comes back down to mindset as far as I'm concerned. Everything is about your mindset, because you don't get to choose what body you grow up into or what environment you're in for the most part. You just are. But you do get to choose who you're being in the face of it. And I think life is more exciting when there are challenges. I don't want an easy life. I want a challenging life. And then I want to take my lessons and disseminate that to other people.
But you spoke about there how an important part of that is the people you're around, the influence. Because on some level, I believe, doesn't matter what happens, we are going to be impacted by other people's values and beliefs. So I know you're a mentor and a coach yourself, and you've also set up, is it Sobo?
Sobo Club, yeah.
Tell us about that and the mission behind that.
So the mission behind, Sobo Club stands for Social Bohemia. And initially it was set up as a networking space, a membership networking space, virtual because we don't have a physical space, but a space where we get together and we meet in incredible places, incredible buildings or incredible members clubs, etc. And it's purely designed to do exactly what we're doing now. So I'd have an inspirational panel, for instance, or an inspirational person that speaks. We had Tim Campbell, for instance. We've had Karen Millen, just people who've really got great stories in the world of business or entrepreneurship or TV, whatever it is. And I'd invite my members here to listen to these people and then to network with each other. Because we all know in business, your network is your net worth. But a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, they're all isolated. They don't have the right networks. They're not inspired. That's why I said your tribe is everything. Yeah. So my vision for Sobo Club was to create a tribe of like-minded people that would support each other to get to the very best level that they could do. Because when you go to a lot of networking events, it's very sort of, everyone's in their own little world. Everyone's in for what they can get for themselves. Or, I went to one the other day and there was literally no host, which shocked me. It was just a random event at the Dorchester. Whereas if you come to a Sobo Club event, I will stand at the front and instruct people. Not one of you is allowed to leave here without making friends with everybody in this room. And no one's better than anyone else. Yes, they will be CEOs or people are pulling in 100 million in their company, but there'll be some other kid that's got a startup. You're not better than that person. Yeah. Go there and share. So Sober Club is about being service to others rather than what's in it for me. So recently now we've just launched a speaking training course, because one thing I saw from my members is that everyone is scared of this. Yeah. People are more terrified of this than they are of dying. Like, what happened to us?
They've said it's one of the biggest fears, haven't they? Like,
public speaking is one of the biggest fears of everyone. Scared of a mic in your face and just speaking. And I was that person.
But they're not, right? They're scared of what people are going to think about them when they hear that, right?
That's the flip side of the tribal side of it. Because, if you look at how we've evolved as, a pack animal, being ostracized from the pack was certain death. There'll be no one looking out for you, no one to protect you. You're gone. Yeah. And I think this fear of being ostracized from the pack is so deeply embedded in our DNA that this is still a reminder of it.
Right.
What if I say something stupid? What if they don't like me? What if they laugh at me? Oh my God. Whereas my thing is, but this is also a conduit for your greatness. And if they laugh at you, you can learn. Why did they laugh at me? Maybe they should have laughed at me. What can I learn? So I learned from... just generally for most people are scared to talk into a mic. There was a time I was scared to talk into a mic, especially when I was unwell. Can you imagine? I'd be sat here with tinnitus raging. I'll be in my head all the time. I was such a poor me pity person that I'd be terrified on the mic. Of course, I get it. I have compassion for it. Whereas now I'm like, give me the bloody mic. Give me the mic, because I really want to make a difference. So that's one of the things that we're launching now is all about how to speak on the mic. Whether you're going to do a keynote talk, You know, you might want to do, a lot of people want to do TED Talks, for instance. It's on a lot of people's bucket list, but they're too scared to do it, or they think they're not good enough. I hate people saying, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't want any human being around me to not think they're good enough. You're great. Like, my whole raison d'etre, as they say, is to let people know how great you are. Like, if I can just let 10 people know how great they are before I die, I've done a good job. If I can get 1 million, then fine. I think that's my purpose here. So we're launching this to let people know you too can be a great speaker. Because sometimes people look at someone like me, I think, Tre, you speak so well. You're always on TV. You're a broadcaster. You know, you're great on this. And they think like almost I was born with it. Like I came out of the womb like this. And I talk so much, it almost feels like I did. But I learned this. I used to be a shy guy that had no friends, that thought I was ugly, thought I was unattractive, thought nobody want to hear me. I thought I was short. And if you were in my head back those days, you'd be like, wow, I can't believe what he thinks of himself. It was disgusting. Like disgusting. To now being someone, you can poke a camera in my face, fine, I'll be me. Put a mic in front of me, I will be me. Talk to me on the street, I'll be that very same person. You know, and that's why when people watch me on The Apprentice, they're like, wow, Tre, how did you deal with that? And I'm like exactly the same person. I'm just me. And that's forged through pain. So I want to teach other people that you too can become a great speaker. You can be someone that can disseminate your information and your ideas to people. You can be someone that can go out there and create business for yourself. Because a lot of people, especially in our club, may not be generating the revenue that they want. And the only way you can do it is through this, essentially in today's world. So it's about giving people the tools for them to go out and be the best version of themselves, go out and be seen. You know, it's called Unleashed. So people can take the lid off their self-expression and be all that they were born to be. And yeah, people will laugh at you. People think you're stupid. You know, I think we almost have to step into being cringy in owning our personal brand. I'm sure you've done things that you probably find a bit cringy, right?
Loads.
You've gone on TV, you might have found that cringy.
Definitely.
I was cringing out to go on The Apprentice.
You were?
I didn't relate to The Apprentice like it was it. I related to it as reality TV. I'm someone that's come from Body Groove and UK Garage, and I'm cool, I'm a musician. We don't go on reality TV. We're too cool for that. I had to deal with that. As my brother's death, that made me think I couldn't care less about all of that looking good. And thank God I did. You know, so I want to be that kind of person that has people do the cringy stuff, do the uncomfortable stuff. Do the what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? Do it. And if you fall flat on your face, you learn. There's nothing wrong with anything you do in life. You just learn. Life just gives you lessons. That's it. There's no good, bad, right or wrong. It's just a lesson.
The Apprentice that you just mentioned then, you said you're glad you did it.
I'm so glad I did it.
Tell us about that.
I was, again, so my brother passed away, and I really wanted to honor him. I did it in one way through music. I released another version of Body Groove, our most known song, and that went on to stream like 20 million. And then I thought, no, but I actually want to share a bit of his story, and I want to come up with a product that actually impacts men and men's health. So my wife actually auditioned for The Apprentice, and I remember when my brother passed at that time, I was thinking, because I really believe in God, like, God, just give me a sign for something, another way that I can really honor him. And that was it. So I had that in the back of my mind. So my wife randomly auditioned for The Apprentice. She's so ambitious. And something in me said, this is it. I was like, no, God, I'm not doing this. Are you crazy? I'm not going on TV. This is it. I'm like, no. And something just said to me, you know what? Audition. And the reason why I was like, not sure, is I knew the minute I sat there in front of a producer, he's going to think, oh, God, get this guy on the show. Because my story is unusual. Yeah. You know, I'm like, I wasn't a celebrity, but I kind of had done something that everyone knew pretty much in the country. I was the oldest person that's ever been on that show. I have a certain look that you don't necessarily associate with The Apprentice. Like, they let me wear my earrings and suit and looked cool. But I remember sat there on the very first day in that first boardroom meeting, sat on the sofa, and I was thinking, what the hell are you doing? Even up to that point. So I've gone through all the auditions, I've done everything. Yep. And a part of me was trying to self-sabotage. Thank God for my wife, because if it wasn't for her, I might have self-sabotaged myself out of the process. Like, oh, I'll do this form then. You know, you had all, the process is like joining the SAS to do the Apprentice. And again, that's what I mean when I say men do better with women. See the example? Yeah. She's like, Tre, no, you're going to fill it out now. Yep. You're going to do this now. You're going to turn up now. You're going to buy the suit now. You're going to take pictures and send it to like the process is rigorous. Without her, I wouldn't have ended up on the show. But I sat there the first day on that sofa and I thought, you can leave because they've probably got stand-ins, like basically. Reserves, I learned later that they didn't have reserve. The two reserves were actually on the show. I won't say who the two were, but they were two on the show. And I remember thinking, just leave. They'll be fine. Just leave. You'll be okay. It hasn't started until you're sat in front of Lord Sugar himself. You leave at any time. And the side of me that's resilient said, no, Tre, if you beat tinnitus, derealization, you beat wanting to top yourself for how many years, this is a walk in the park. And I sat there. And the reason why I was scared was exactly what I said to you earlier. What are people going to think? What if I go out in the first round or the second round, or I make a fool of myself? What's everyone in the music business going to think about me? Because when I came out of The Apprentice, I told my manager, he didn't know, because you're sworn to secrecy. His first thought was like, why did you go on there? And it made me think, why did I? And this is after the process. I'd already done well, got to the final. He reminded me of the risk that I took because I could have looked silly. Yeah, you can always dig yourself out of whatever silly hole you put yourself in, but come on, I am cool. I kind of don't want to make a fool of myself. But thank God I did, because not only does it elevate your platform, I probably wouldn't be here had I not done but everything that I'm passionate about, and I said on the show, because they make you say this braggadocious things before it starts, and I said I want to change the world. Like, I literally want to impact the world and create a legacy that reverberates through time. That might sound ostentatious to someone who doesn't know my story. Someone who knows my story, that knows that I'm here so people get how great they are. You're damn right I want my legacy to reverberate through time. Just like Dr. Claire Weeks, this old Australian doctor who I don't know impacted my life. Or just like one of my musical heroes, Beethoven. I'm a massive Beethoven fan because he had tinnitus and hearing loss. Their legacies have reverberated through time.
Yeah.
Who knew that son of Nigerian immigrants who settled in Notting Hill in England would be impacted by a man that lived 170 years ago in Vienna? It's so important that we think long-term beyond our lifetimes. How can my being here impact future generations in a positive way? So The Apprentice was part of that same journey. I want to impact my brother. I want to talk about him. I mean, I got my brother's baby picture in The Sun, talking about his life, who he was, the difference he made. Like, I love that. Don't get me blubbing on here. Like, I love him with every bone in my body, and to see his face in The Sun and his story and all the papers and who he was, it was like, even though I knew that every time someone listens to Make the Body Move, they were listening to my brother's voice, I also wanted them to get a bit of a story about the man behind that voice, and to have achieved that as a result of going on The Apprentice, to talk about some of the men's issues that we did. Not everything made it onto the show, but I spoke a lot about men's issues. To come up with this startup idea for men to boost their testosterone levels, because that's a big crisis a lot amongst modern men now, is testosterone. So my startup idea, it was all around this theme of really making a difference, honoring my brother, making a difference, talking about men's issues, but also me being a living example of what it looks like to go beyond your fear. That's why I tell that story of even sat there in that first boardroom, that voice in my head, the amygdala, your fight or flight, I call that voice Amy, short for the amygdala, was telling me, Trey, run, get out of here. Just go, just leave. I'm glad that I didn't listen to her and instead followed purpose, because purpose is bigger than fear. And my purpose was to make a difference, and that was a necessary journey, part of the journey. I'm so glad for it. Because even to this day, I get stopped in the street almost every single day.
Wow.
And what I'm glad about the show like The Apprentice is, it's I mean, you know this because you've been on a similar program. You can't pretend to be something you're not on a show like that. It's too long.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you get found out. You have to let the act down eventually.
If it was an hour show, surely I can pretend to be this cool dude, got it all together, not afraid, knows what he's talking about. No. For that long, you'll see every facet of me. And what I'm glad about is when people came on and spoke to me on the street, it was about who I was being. You know, like there were a couple of challenging characters in there, and an older version of me would have gone at someone on that show. Whereas now I'm like, because I relate to people like, you are great. I didn't get rattled by anyone. They couldn't mess with me, don't get me wrong. I'm not a pushover, but I could always see the greatness in them. So you wouldn't see me in that show going at someone, or it was always looking for the best. I mean, there was one particular girl on there, Noor, and a lot of people disliked her in the comments, like fans of the show. Trey, how dare you let her speak to you like that? And she was rude to you and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is a young girl with a business, you know?
Right.
Like, have some grace for this person. Do you know how hard it is to get on The Apprentice? It's not easy.
I had a similar experience in my show, in people doing wrong to me and stuff like that. And the audiences love to just, they see it almost like it's not real, because it's this TV, right?
Like pantomime or something.
But that was my gut instinct in some of my examples. Is like, yeah, but she's a young girl. She's doing, like, we're all struggling. It's a challenge with
something,
And I think the world needs more of that.
The world needs...
I've just got to say, like, being in your... this is probably the most quiet I've ever been on my own show.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm just so genuinely, like, in awe of you and your presence and your story and your energy and your resilience. I think that's a big word I'm going to take away when I think of you. And I'm sure, I've no doubt people listening are feeling that, you know, even though they're not here in person. What about, there's going to be people that then hear about you and GB News.
Yep.
And there's going to be some people, because I've heard people speak in terms of branding and business and in terms of PR, and there are people who won't touch GB News because they have opinions that, you know, it's a divisive platform, you shouldn't give it airtime and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure there'll be people listening to you and hearing your experiences and hearing the amazing kind of person that you are, and then they'll go, but why is he putting his name to GB News?
Yep.
What's your response to them?
So I totally understand it. And if I'm honest, sometimes I actually think about that almost on a daily basis, right? But it's, you know, one of my political heroes, right, is Nelson Mandela. And he's had the same accusations thrown at him. How dare you are there with, you know, the same party that was enforcing the subjugation and the almost the annihilation of the black man in South Africa. You're going to sit with him and talk about a coalition and a rainbow nation? Like, how dare you? Shame on you. What Nelson Mandela understood was this. You know, like me, he's got a vision that every life matters, that people are great. And he has a view of how he wants the world to be. So when people think about GB News and just dismiss them as this dog-whistling, right-wing propaganda station, what they don't realize is a lot of people in the country generally are frustrated. So you're saying that some sectors are okay,
right, because
they tick certain PC boxes, but other people are not. And you know, it's like I always talk a lot. You know, one of the biggest groups that's failing in society right now? White working class boys. So you're saying that they don't matter? And, you know, if I don't speak to them, who will? There will be people on the right that will literally radicalize these boys.
Right. Yeah.
Same when people talk about fundamentalist Islam. It's the same sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You get angry, disaffected, disengaged young men, and you use them for your own purposes. I'd rather use them for good. So me going on GB News, it's all about bringing us perspective that's balanced.
Right.
Because if I don't, who will? And people can ignore them as much as they want, but you're seeing things like Reform killing it in the polls right now.
Right.
So you're trying to ignore them is not actually working,
Right,
because they're actually growing bigger and bigger. And I've got nothing against Reform, nothing whatsoever. You know, I see them in the same way I'd see the Labour or Greens, whatever it might be.
Where would you consider yourself politically?
Completely centred. Completely. The only time I've ever voted, I voted for Labour, and I voted for Tony Blair. It took us into the Iraq war, and I said never again. And I haven't voted since then. But I'm very centred. I completely can see people on the left and see people on the right. And I think most sensible people probably are somewhere in the centre. I would say most people are not too far left. Most people are not too far right.
I've always said this. I think whenever you go to an extreme with anything, you're probably wrong.
You're probably wrong.
And
exactly,
I think that with like nutrition or, you know, anything, you can almost find that will be the same thing. You're probably wrong if you've gone
And the
extreme.
problem as well, because a lot of people will be okay with something that's far left, but then when you're far left, that will lead to something like Trump, for those who don't like Trump, right? Because the left will get so much more and more absurd that other people thinking, I've had enough of it.
So it goes more the other way.
So the pendulum swings back. And I'm sick of the pendulum. For me, being on GB News represents a way to almost break the pendulum. By calling out the dog whistling on the right, and I say all the time, it's the triple M's. It's the migrants, Muslims, and Meghan.
Yeah.
That's the favourites of the right and of GB News.
And it's still going on about Meghan.
Yeah, everything to blame the country. So the fact that bread costs more, blame the migrants. The fact that the cost of living is up, blame. The fact that we have austerity, blame the migrants. I mean, way before the boat crossings was an issue, everything's like blame the migrants. And we know it's not as simple as blaming the migrants. You got banks, you got this, you got that.
Yeah.
You got 1,000 things. I think migrants probably wouldn't even be in a top 10 of that.
Yeah.
Right? And you can still have an opinion on the boats. I'm sure most people may not necessarily want boatloads of people coming over necessarily. But I'm going to treat them with compassion. They're human beings. Even the ones that are economic migrants are still human beings. They're not much different than my parents. Yeah, my parents' generation were invited over, just like the Windrush generation, because this country needed people to work in the NHS, the education services. Fine. But people who are getting on a dinghy to come to this country, they're pretty desperate. I'm going to treat them with compassion. They're not vermin. They're not invaders. They're just ordinary people.
But then what about to the people that say, but they're not? The people, there's these men coming over with bad intentions.
But you can still deal with them without the dog whistling. Because the problem with dog whistling, these same working class white youths are going to be vulnerable to these messages. Before you know, someone's going out and burning down migrant hotels, which has happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or someone's going to be out there attacking mosques. Do you understand? I don't want to live in a society where it's hate-filled all the time. You're my brother. Everyone here is my brother and my sister. Like, what is wrong with living in a world like that? Doesn't mean I'm going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and everything's great. I understand that there's problems there. So yeah, you're going to deal with the boats, but deal with it in a way without demonizing others. I mean, I'll give you an example. My wife, who's Libyan and she's Muslim, her family were nearly attacked after a march. And this march was a anti-Iranian march. So I don't know why they've tried to attack them, but they've just seen them in hijabs and they've gone for them. People on the far right just think, no, but we just want our country back. They have no idea the actual real world impact on other people. There are people now that would look at, and it's almost like the lid's been let off and every race has come out of the woodwork. People like me, they would want to send me back to Nigeria. I'm more British than I am Nigerian. Mm-hmm. I have Nigerian values, which are key to me, but I'd be a foreigner in that country in many ways. Send what, Anthony Joshua back, Ian Wright back, Frank Bruno back? Where do you draw the line? So I'd rather be on a station like GB News fighting some of that rhetoric in the thick of it. And I do. I'm not on there agreeing with people. I'm fighting. I'm always having fights on that station. But I also am very much a believer in the freedom of people to actually speak. Like, I'm like a libertarian. I may not agree with you, but I'll defend to death your right to say it. And the way you deal with those people is by debunking a lot of this stuff. Where do you get these figures that migrants are 22 times more likely to do this and do that? It's all nonsense once you break it down. So I want to be in the thick of it, fighting it, as well as some of those on the left, because they're also, some of them, problematic. You have some people that will say, oh, we're allies to black people. And I'm like, you're causing more harm. If you were allies to us, listen to what our needs are. Do you know what I mean?
So are you saying that basically you don't stand for cancel culture? And
I'm against cancel culture. I'm much more for freedom of speech. It doesn't mean that there won't be consequences to what pops out of people's mouths. Fine.
But there's consequences either way, right?
Either way, yeah. The consequence of not actually talking about things that you don't want to happen in society is these things grow bigger, which is now everyone's scared that reform's going to get to leadership. Well, that's what happens if you try and ignore people.
Right. That's
you know, you ignore working class white people. That's what you get. And most of them are not bigots. I will stand by this. This country is full of some of the nicest people that you will find on the face of planet Earth. I'm not one of these people that some people on the left, they just say, you're British, you're bad, colonialism, and every white face is. No, I think that's also problematic. I don't do that BS. I will think for myself and speak for myself. So there has to be someone who's got the strength of character that can put themselves in places where other people fear to tread and speak their truth. Do you know? And I don't think the days of, because you're on GB News, no one's going to want it. I don't think that's true at all.
True.
I still to this day go from the BBC to GB to ITV and everywhere. I'm just authentic. And if you're authentic, that's what people see. They don't see any of these other banners that people want to place on you.
It comes back to what you're saying about labels and things like that. I mean, I just have to say the world needs so many more you in it. And if there's any, I just want to say this on the podcast, if there's anything I can do to help give you more of a platform, I know you're out there, you're doing your thing and you're doing absolutely incredible stuff as it is, but I just want to say, like, I am a supporter 100%. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing. Before we finish, I've got a few kind of general questions that I ask all guests. We might have to do quick fire, just looking at the time, but let's go for them. So the first one is, what's some of the best advice you've received in your life and why?
What I said about my dad when he said, you're black, you're going to have to work 3 times harder, because it's given me, I mean, I explained just shortly about my dad. My dad is an immigrant that came to Notting Hill, probably the worst neighbourhood you could come to in London at the time, got into property and became a multi-millionaire property investor. He showed me that it doesn't matter where you're from, colour of the skin, you can succeed. And because he said to me, work 3 times harder, that's all I ever do. I don't complain. I just crack on. That was probably the best advice I've ever heard. Work 3 times harder. Like, what's your competition doing? Work 3 times harder than them. Do you know? Within reason, obviously, because I'm very much into well-being.
Sure.
But outwork people. Yeah. So that's probably the best advice.
Just be better is what I'm hearing, isn't it?
Be better. Yeah. Never get to the point where you say, I know it already. I think that's the most dangerous words that can come out of your mouth. I know it already. And a lot of men are like that.
Stubborn.
More so. There's a stubbornness of men. There's an arrogance of men of I know it already. No, the only thing I know is I know nothing. I think it was Aristotle that said that, or someone like that.
Yeah.
Like that's probably a great advice. Yeah, the only thing I know is I know nothing. Especially from a business point of view, be willing to learn.
The flip side is, what's some of the worst advice that might have been well-meaning, but in reality you found that's terrible advice?
Interesting. My brain's such a positive space. I can't even think of the worst advice. Probably something
she's
like
turn it all into good anyway, right?
I'd probably say something like wait for the right time.
Okay.
You know, some people are like that. Like, you know that in business. People that say, no, but you know, it might not be the right time, or no, but you sure you want to do this? That's the worst advice. I would say go out and make a mistake if you can, if you have to. Now, do as much due diligence as you possibly can to mitigate against that, but don't do all of this wait for the right time. You know how many podcasters I know that will say, oh, no, I want to do a podcast, but no, it's not quite. Did you do that? You just cracked on, didn't you? I imagine. There you go. You got your laptop on. You did it on Zoom. You cracked on.
I'd never been on a podcast. I'd never interviewed
There
anybody.
you go.
Had no evidence to say I'd be any good.
Now, there'd be people saying, no, but you should wait. Wait until you get a bit of money. Make sure the studio looks amazing. Make sure you do this, do it.
And they said, you'll never make money out of it. It's just a hobby. Like,
there you go. Yeah, that. Wait for the right time. Worst advice.
Okay,
go out and do it.
The next question is based on, I think quite often when we listen to podcasts, we put the guest on a bit of a pedestal because they've been invited because they've achieved some cool stuff. And it's important to remember we're all human. We're all going through stuff. We all have ups and downs. I know you've touched on that a lot today. So the question is, what is something you're actually finding challenging right now? And how are you overcoming that?
Something that I'm finding challenging right now. I think for me, as you can imagine, because I do talk a lot and I have a lot of passion about a lot of things, the thing that I find challenging right now, and I've kind of always found challenging, is the ability to focus on one thing. It's so hard, isn't it? Like, at the moment I do a lot of things. I run Sobo Club. I look after the family property portfolio, and we're trying to do a lot of things with that, and it's a big job. Obviously, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I look after my parents. I'm a carer to both of them. They both got Parkinson's disease. I live just above them, and I make sure that they're okay. So it's the challenge is...
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, I do generally do a lot. And people look at me and think, Trey, how do you cope? Again, it's resilience. I just, I'll stop when I'm dead as far as I'm concerned. But it's the ability to just focus on one thing and one thing only is the biggest challenge that I've got. I find that so hard.
How are you working on it?
Delegation, a little bit, as much as possible. That's hard because I'm a perfectionist. And asking for help. Yeah. Like I say, the toxic masculinity trait would have you do it all yourself because you got it all sorted. Whereas the grounded masculinity is, I don't have it all sorted. I'm snowed under. I need help. What are your thoughts? I mean, even ChatGPT has been great for that. I think ChatGPT is one of the greatest tools, even for mentorship. Like I'll say to things like, if you were Nelson Mandela, how would you advise me? If you were Stephen Bartlett, how would you advise? It's absolutely brilliant, ChatGPT. But yeah, it's asking for help. It
also gets it wrong sometimes.
It gets it wrong
and I go, are you sure? And they go, oh, my mistake.
You've got to check it a lot of the time.
Check
but yeah, it definitely is asking for help because I will do so many different things. So much.
I feel that. I feel that pain. Trey, if people are hearing about you for the first time, where can they connect with you? And importantly, how do we get involved with Sobo Club? Because I think I'd like to sign up.
So, soboclub.com. First place you need to go for Sobo Club. Definitely, dude. Come on board. Come to the speaking thing that we're doing, actually. It's going to be brilliant. On my socials, mainly probably Instagram, @Tre Lowe is the easiest way to get hold of me, but also LinkedIn as well, which I don't know if LinkedIn do @ I never know, but just Tre Lowe. Search me on there. That's probably the best two ways. Or message me directly on my website, trelowe.com, and I will get back to you as well. I do get back to people because I get a lot of people, for instance, with tinnitus, because I do a lot of work for RNID, who ask me about tinnitus, and they're like what you said earlier, they're truly in the depths of suffering. I will answer every single one, especially those people that are suffering. Wow. So yeah, definitely get in touch with me.
Final question. What is your personal definition of success?
Right now, being a father. Yeah, being a father trumps everything else.
Nice. Trey, thank you.
Thank you.
Honestly, thank you very much.